talking about Mo Light at World Finals last year. In case you guys don't remember, Mohamed Light lost one game last year at CRL World Finals.
Okay, yeah,
just
that's ridiculous.
One game, and that was to a former world champion in LCOP in the very first match of the tournament. Other than that, it was Mo Light 2-0 over Lucas, Mo Light 2-0 over Riley, and then Mo Light 2-0 over Riley again in our grand finals. So Mohamed Light still just really locking in why he is the greatest player in the game, and we'll see how much work he's been putting in this downtime. I mean, we're still seeing him grind. We're still seeing him get to that number 1, number 2, number 3 spot on the leaderboard. I mean, this is Mohamed Light we're talking about. So here we go. This is an exciting, exciting best of 3. Game number 1, RG, bottom of your screen. No surprise there. Evo Hunter, I believe, first appearance of the day. Top of your screen, Juicy. Talk to me a little bit about those 4 cards when they're all paired together.
Yeah, we might see a little bit of Splash Yard from Pedro here. The Splash Yard, like, I don't know. The Splash Yard meta is in a really weird spot. After the Tornado nerf, I've even seen a lot of Splash Yard variations that don't even use Tornado. We might be seeing an Ice Wiz plus Evo Witch, no Tornado matchup here. And the question here is, how does this deck pair versus RG? I would say in general, it can be difficult to defend the RG, as you're seeing right here, just because, once again, you know, the Tombstone isn't getting the job done. The Gob Huts don't get the job done. You need a cannon, you need a Berry Tower, you need an Inferno Tower, something like that. But on the other hand, Mohamed Light doesn't have a big spell. A lot of the time, Splasher can struggle because a Fireball can take out your Ice Wiz, or a Lightning can take out your Witch. No big spell here maybe gives Pedro a solid chance once we're in double elixir.
Yeah, interesting. Maybe trying to hold that Lightning or other big spell for later on in this best of 3. He decides to go with the small spell of the Rage plus the small spell of the Log there. And there you go, Rage dropping in on that Ice Wiz, Log coming out on that Tombstone.
Fisherman gonna pull the Witch here. Mo, but just playing patient here. He's up damage, and he's just gonna try and hold on to that. But here's the difficult part for Mo. Though Evo Witch is in cycle, no Lightning in this deck to deal with it. He's gonna have to make some Mo Light plays in order to defend his Evo Witch.
Yeah, and as you were saying, just him playing slow and steady, getting 2 Rages out on that Ice Wiz for a little bit of tower chip damage. 1981 to 2874 here, as we're seeing a bit of a pile up at the bridge, which is to be expected.
And we see another Witch dropping down instead of the Graveyard. He wants to keep spawning in lots of skeletons here, but the Fisherman does clutch. It pulls the Evo Witch to the middle map, and he's able to take it out. That's insane. Pedro just lost all his momentum in this match.
What a snipe there from the Fish Boy. Minute 45 remains here in overtime, and 1981 is the lead for Mo Light as he cycles an RG in the opposite lane of the damage that is done, maybe trying to focus the attention of Pedro to the other side, because that is the weaker tower of Mo on the left-hand side. And as you said, Juice, he's got a massive lead, and there's not a way for Pedro to catch up other than having a great Graveyard come through. So Mo just making him play out of sorts and in his pace, making Pedro play at Mo's pace.
Here comes the Graveyard Barber on the left-hand side. Guards, last card, going to do a great job of defending here. And the Monk on the right, just cleaning up the Baby Dragon, cleaning up almost everything. We do see Pedro get some nice damage through, but there's only 60 seconds left in this game, Andrew.
Skellies from the Graveyard keep that Witch alive. That Evo Witch has been alive for, I don't know, 30 seconds on the right-hand side of the board. Doesn't seem to be much of a threat, though, at the moment for Mo Light, keeping her at bay. And there you go, Fishboy going to take care of her as the battle resumes on the left-hand side of the board. Monk kind of holding everything at the line. Mo goes RG at the bridge, right-hand side.
Log going to come through. Baby Drag Graveyard is a big threat, but he decides to spend Elixir on defense, and that's why Mo plays this RG. He knows that he's going to force him to defend, and he's playing another one, forcing him to defend even further, trying to make it so Pedro can't go for that Graveyard.
Right, you know Pedro wants to Graveyard right now on the right-hand side. He's got a great push put together, but that Monk doing a great job against the Ice Wiz Witch combo. RG's coming out. Sometimes the best defense is offense, and that's what we're seeing here from Mohamed Light. Get those RGs out so that my opponent cannot stack Elixir up. And there you go. Good defense, although a lot of damage in. Mo
and the Witch on the tower? But it's not enough. Mohamed Light making the impossible possible, winning versus the Evo Witch without a big spell in game number 1. This is insane.
Yeah, you know, the ability that he has to just play confidently and calm, doing things like cycling rages to get to King Tower with like 3 elixir, right? This is that very basic idea brought out to the highest level of gameplay. If you're going up against this deck that you know is going to start to succeed more in double elixir, you know that that pileup is going to happen, you know they have the poison value, and you know the only reason that they're going to be able to beat you is with that knight plus witch plus baby dragon and then the graveyard. You've got to make them spend elixir elsewhere, and that was perfect from our 2-time world champion.
I love what Mo's doing here. He's like, you know what? I'm going to show you how to play this deck, Pedro. And he literally just straight up copies here. He's on the Evo Witch Splash Yard here. We're not going to see a tornado, which once again is so strange to me.
It's wild.
Rip Tornado 2025. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, it looks like he's going against Pedro using a Mortar Bait deck. I would say that the Mo probably has a pretty good matchup here, but that's pretty contingent on the spell situation from Pedro. If Pedro does have that lightning for the Evo Witch, it could be difficult to get value from that card.
Yeah, those spears going to also get a lot of value against the graveyard for Pedro there, at least something to think about. And yeah, it's wild, man. It's talking about spears, talking about tornado. Every single time that NATO comes off and doesn't take my spear goblins or other like squishy troops off the board that it used to, I'm always like, is that under level? No, this is it's still, even now, it still throws me off.
And there is the lightning from Pedro, going to clean off the Evo Witch immediately. But the other, like, probably the biggest thing to think about in this matchup, though, is the fact that Pedro is using the Cannoneer version. This is maybe the only time, or one of the only times, we'll actually see a different tower troop other than Princess used. And it just makes it so Mohamed Light can do this. He's going to go for the Graveyard. He doesn't need a tank. He's the Cannoneer, only shoots once every, like, you know, 1.5 to 2 seconds, allowing those skeletons to provide a lot of pressure and value.
As someone that plays Mortar a lot, everyone knows that, but, you know, now with Cannoneer, Mortar Cannoneer is kind of a must. Graveyard is always very frustrating to play against because there is that thing that you just talked about, Juicy, where you can use that Graveyard just so much more liberally. You don't need a tank. You don't need to find an opening. You don't need to have a huge elixir advantage. You can just make them overspend. So we'll see if the greatest in the world can abuse that here against Pedro, who's doing a pretty good job so far. 2270 top right-hand side against 2497. Here we go. Ice Wiz getting tanked for. NATO's back. He does have the NATO. NATO is going to get that Golden Knight just close enough to tower for the Ice Wiz to splash. 2073 with a decent counter push as Pedro goes counter push right-hand side, Mortar left.
Yeah, I mean, Pedro, we know he is probably the best Mortar player in the game. I mean,
whoa, Juicy, whoa. I'm right here.
Okay. Second best Mortar player in the game. Andrew's going to take the cake on that. My bad, Pedro. I mean, the facts are the facts. But he's applying a lot of pressure here. He's making it work. And he's trying to do everything in his power to force Mo to defend, similar to what we saw last matchup, to make it so that the Graveyard isn't going to come down as often on those Cannoneers. But here comes the Graveyard nonetheless.
Yeah, it's tough. You know, that Mortar in the opposite lane is just so much easier to keep controlled than an RG push to the opposite lane. And Pedro definitely feeling that right now as he goes Mortar again. Tombstone, great distraction there. Gets the Tombstone out early, so it's on those skeletons. Skeleton's going to distract. 1295 to 2154 as an Evo Witch has to come out from Mo Light to take care of that Mortar.
And notice the placements that Mohamed Light uses in this match. He's always playing the Witch up high to make it so that the lightning value isn't there. And because of that, Pedro wants to find other ways to defend against the Evil Witch other than lightning it. But that just makes it so it provides even more value. And the Graveyard on the right-hand side just absolutely slaying out here. Wow, and we see Mohamed Light emoting on everyone. This is insane.
Look at him. He is playing firmly in the meta. He is playing, you know, against the best player in the world. We saw a little bit of that from BM afterwards. So he at least seems like he's in the right place, whereas other players seem like maybe they're just still adapting to what the current meta is. Grieco might be running back what he has been practicing with, or what he most recently practiced with while he's been waiting, which is this mortar deck with Golden Knight, Bats, Lightning, Gang, Spears, and Log.
Interesting. Miner going to come through, get some chip damage. Seems pretty aggressive to me, but he does clean up the counter push well with the Bats. That's the interesting thing in Clash Royale. Like, sometimes being more aggressive is actually good, because if you can clean up the counter push, there's a fine line between being too aggressive and not aggressive enough for those counter pushes.
Yeah, sometimes you'll see people spend, 5 or 6 elixir right out the gate and go hyper aggressive, and then they'll have all the answers they need, and then they've just got a nice advantage at the very beginning of the game. Obviously not what you want to run into. Sometimes it works the other way. This is a lot of elixir spent from Grieco, and this is kind of what we were just talking about, right? He goes hyper aggressive, gets that lightning in, is a -1 trade. There is the Skeleton King on the board, but a perfect set of bats to clean everything up for very cheap.
Yeah, we saw a similar matchup to this matchup earlier, but this time Grieco has a Golden Knight, which is going to be much better versus Swarms than the Boss Bandit. He also has the Log instead of arrows. So I think that's going to give him a little bit more possibilities, or a little bit more advantage when it comes to defense. But despite that, it's still going to be difficult to deal with the Witch, the Skelly King, and even the Tombstone when you are running the Cannoneer.
So Spears get a little bit of damage in as the Golden Knight cycled in the back. Log comes down to clean up the Skellies and misses the Tombstone.
Wow.
Unfortunately. I was going to say that Log looked really low, but I'm like, all right, you're the pro, not me.
Interesting.
Oh,
wow. Golden Knight does not go to the Witch, but Lightning gets value. And does clean up a lot of the Skellies. And this is the strength of Evo Bats. This is one of the reasons why this deck specifically can do well versus Royal Giant. Once you get those Evo Bats in cycle, the E-Spirit is pretty much useless in that situation.
Yeah, Evo Bat's still one of my favorite Evos in the game. I really do love that the ability for them to survive through a small spell is basically what their evolution is. I mean, obviously there's the vampire effect and a little bit of HP, but the biggest value always comes when your opponent doesn't have a spell to take them off the board.
I love this Goblin Gang placement from Grieco on the left side, knowing the Log's going to come through, or at least preparing for that possibility, and that allows for a very solid defense, and he's just up so much damage here.
And this is exactly the situation that you want to get in against these Royal Giant matchups, right? You've got good damage in single, you've been doing and chipping away in double, you're not getting too aggressive. We just saw that Miner play defensively. You're not trying to make big things happen when you've already got a big damage lead, and we'll see if Grieco can just kind of ride that wave as this goes on. If I'm Grieco right now, I'm doing exactly what he's doing, setting up defense in the back, making sure I have a response for that Skeleton King ability. I have the Lightning ready to go to catch the Witch as she works down the left-hand side of the board, doing all the things right at this moment. Yeah,
and Pedro's trying to mix things up on how he plays by spamming Tombstones and Witch and Skelly King on both lanes to try to overwhelm the Cannoneer. But somehow Grieco's able to really kind of just pick apart each and every skeleton by using his Log, his 3-card cycle, his Golden Knight, and those Spear Gobs especially are doing a great job.
A little bit of damage through on the right-hand side. Let's not forget that. 40 seconds remaining. 1884 versus 1255. Golden Knight on that left-hand tower. Lightning at the bridge on the right-hand side. So now Grieco in a spot to where he can go either lane, but going to stick to the right here as he's got a nice counter push coming in.
Which up high to prevent Lightning value. Seems like Pedro's trying to Lightning cycle, but he knows he's not enough. So he goes for the Royal Giant, the bridge, and an E-Spirit for the Bats. A Log on the Spear Gobs, but there's 2 mortars on the defense. Lightning coming through, and the Spear Gobs getting nice chip in the left lane. Mortar gets a hit, and now it's all Grieco here on the offense.
Yep, Mortar gets a hit on the right. Miner plus Spears on the left to pull out Elixir. Grieco knows game 1 is in the bag. Mortar shot doesn't come in to take the tower out. And the tiebreaker obviously goes to Grieco here in game number 1. Very, very well played there. And honestly, that's really kind of how you play that matchup.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to figure out, sacrifice too much spell value at the bridge. Is there actually a tried and true equation for this, or is it kind of like you have to feel it out?
It's a good question. I think in general, what I like to do is if it's a regular witch, I might look for more value or try to counter with the Golden Knight. If it's an Evo Witch and they drop it in the back, I'm insta-lighting it every time, just because, I mean, that is one of the trump cards of the deck, right? I think that if you just lighting it every time, I think in most situations you're going to be good to go.
Good to know, especially because Lightning and Witch is in about, I don't know, 60% of the matchups you see on ladder right now. Pedro going to Piggies. Piggies have had a lot of success throughout the day. Grieco, with his win in his pocket, is going to go to RG. Earthquake cycle in here from Pedro as Grieco just going to kind of sit back. Makes sense, right? Grieco's going to sit here, and he wants to get to double elixir as soon as possible. He knows that Pedro has the advantage in single, and so does Pedro. So here he goes, split Skellies plus split Hogs, hoping that those Skellies can get a little bit of value. Hunter on the right-hand side plus E-Spirit on the left cleans up the Skellies, but not after a good amount of damage is done. Now we see a Ram Rider sneak in front of that Hunter. Delivery going to come down, do some nice cleanup. Delivery plus Cannon going to be just enough, and Grieco recognizing it's going to be a little bit tougher to break through than he thought it was going to be. RG ends up being Ram Rider. Grieco is Japanese, as I see someone in the chat asking. Grieco, really nice guy. AQ down, meet this boss bandit. Curious to see how the boss bandit's dealt with here. A lot of those small cards to be able to soak up that dash, but also not a lot of damage to come in to deal with it other than with the AQ. No big spell, though, to deal with the Arch Queen. MK cycled in the back. That MK is going to be interesting to see. I like that he plays it early on, not to have to worry about the Royal Hogs, because Grieco had like a bit of map control. And now we'll see if that MK is just held through the rest of this matchup to find those Piggies, as that Ram Rider does find the second cannon that comes down there.
See, this is one of those matchups where it's like, okay, surely Grieco has the matchup, right? Because he has Mega Knight and goes for Royal Hogs, and he has a good offense. But the thing is, when you are playing this matchup from a pro play, like a pro player is playing this matchup, like, they're somehow going to find a way to have perfect defense and just Earthquake cycle and sneak into Royal Hogs when they can.
Yep. Yeah, because what happens, I think, Juicy, is you as that Mega Knight player, you're kind of holding that card to meet those Piggies.
Yep.
And then, like you're talking about, as that EQ, AQ, Hoggies player, you just sit there and defend perfectly. You hold on to your lead, and then you make your opponent play desperately. Now that MK's out of cycle because they're trying to break through. And as you said, defend, defend, defend. MK's out of cycle, find a moment to sneak the Hoggies in if it's there. And I mean, that's literally it right there. That was, I think, everything that Grieco could put in the tank and throw at Pedro. No damage in.
Yeah, I mean, I thought for sure that you were caster cursing them again and that the Ram Rider was going to connect. But then I saw the Earthquake perfectly drop down, slowing everything, making it so the tower had just enough time. And Grieco just doing his best to make something happen. He's going to try and make a dual lane pressure with the boss bandit and the Mega Knight. But here we go. Earthquake cycle once again. The Queen getting good value. The cannons are stacking on the board. Will Grieco break through in this push?
Feels pretty tough, man. Feels pretty tough. Second cannon going to come down there. Second MK down in the opposite lane, which means the second Ram Rider should be coming through soon. Boss Bandit comes down. Not enough elixir for anything else to come on the board, and now this is just becoming a bit of a bridge spam situation without your win condition coming through. Does get the second cannon out on the opposite side, but delivery plus Ice Spirit plus is all going to be enough.
I mean, almost a perfect game from Pedro. I mean, barely any scratches on his tower whatsoever. There's 15 seconds left. He has time for one big push. Evo Mega Knight, Boss Bandit, but the Evo Ice Spirit. Probably the most underrated evolution in Clash Royale right now. even after the nerf where it's 2 stuns instead of 3, it still does a great job of stalling everything, allowing for the towers, the cannons to get the DPS down. Pedro taking game number 2. Perfect game from this man.
This is one of those few moments where I'd actually love to see how many times a card was played. Remember that graphic that was always showing like how many times a card was played, and you're like, I really don't care how many times that card was played. But this time, I actually would love to see how many times those building do you run as Pedro, if that's the situation, right? If you're trying to look for RG and for piggies, he's already used cannon and he's used tombstone. We've talked about how bomb tower is not super effective. Do you go to Goblin Hut? Do you run bomb tower? Do you stick with Inferno, but then it's not good against piggies? Like, what's the thought process?
I mean, I think you nailed it there. Like, the thing is it's kind of a rock paper scissors thing, right? Like, if you play the cannon and you run into a monk, you're in trouble. If you play the Inferno run to roll hogs, you're in trouble. If you play bomb tower for roll hogs and you're up against, you know, like a lightning or a monk to deflect, you know, the bomb tower just, it isn't what it used to be. I think that Tesla is kind of the solid medium, but I don't know. It still does really just get wiped out by the lightning, which is the most used spell. But thankfully, or thankfully for Pedro anyways, the lightning is actually out on both players. So I do think the Tesla is a solid option here for building from both players, actually.
And there you go. Tesla out on both sides as the Little Prince comes into play. We've seen Little Prince a couple times throughout the day, and it's been kind of in this minor control thing a couple times. Monk Exy Drill, so kind of a heavier version of Drill than we've seen.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder what Rico's last card is here. I would actually love to see a Tornado. Even though Tornado is nerfed, I think it does still synergize with the Executioner, with the Boulder and splash cards like that. I think it's pretty necessary, actually. There it is.
And I was just going to say, you want it for moments like that, where you want to be able to get a Valkyrie or something away, because otherwise you have nothing there to kind of make way for your Drill. Right. 2488 to 28. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what the end of this hit. Miner goes in. 2471.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, okay. Gobadrill inbound, guards cleaning up, and this is an interesting matchup here. I think it's really going to come down to if Greco can break through with his Executioner, because that poison does give a little bit of an advantage to Pedro for the direct damage, at least.
Yeah, and also, like, if you're Greco, Juicy, how do you get that Drill on tower effectively? Because you can't really NATO the guards super effectively away.
Yeah.
It feels like it's going to be kind of tough for him to actually break through, other than with what you're talking about of getting some good Exy splash damage in.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think that he does need to get a Monk Exy Drill just to force out responses and then try and get a Tornado. The thing is that Pedro knows that's what he needs to do, so he's going opposite lane, he's applying pressure, and he's trying to force out Elixir a lot of the time. Wow, that Tesla got melted.
Little Prince working its way across the left-hand side of the board. NATO to pull the Valkyrie back, but guards there to catch. 2287 as Greco gets guards down to defend. And decent monk damage in on the right-hand side. 2248, 2287. A very, very close game number 3 here.
Valkyrie gets some hits. Miner's trying to get chip damage. We're to about 10 seconds. Still triple Elixir and a high Tesla from Pedro. I like these high Teslas. They're just kind of blocking the bridge, making so the monk can't do what it wants. Because, yeah, I mean, once again, it's every damage matters in a mirror matchup like this.
Yeah, it's a great call. I mean, that Tesla up high, and then you see the Teslas kind of battling over the bridge now and just kind of showing a recognition like you're talking about, where there's just not a great way to get on top of that Tesla for Greco, so he has to use his own Tesla up high to do so. A little bit more monk reflectability coming in here. Guard's going to be there to catch the Drill. Guard's going to be there to catch the Miner.
Little Prince walks away, though.
Oh,
okay.
So now we see a Tesla having to come out. Yep. Valkyrie can now maybe get NATO'd away. Yes, he does. 2184, 1888. Greco's starting to create a little bit of a gap here. Only 20 seconds remaining. Naked Poison in. Excuse me, 2165, I guess, was the lower tower on the right-hand side. As that Poison comes in. 1888 still to 1927. Poison comes back down. Miner goes back in. Who's going to win the race?
Miner does get hit with the snowball. The drill's trying to get damage. The tornado drops down, but the goblin is not able to connect Pedro, winning by only 60 damage in the game number 3.
60 HP. The quadruple drop around the Princess Tower to make sure that nothing can get NATO'd away. Pedro with a last-second tower change. Honestly, I mean, he'd been kind of going both lanes for a while, but been focusing on the left-hand side. Gets that last little bit of damage in on the right. 1640, 1700, and a great win there from Pedro, who stays alive after having a rough start to the day. Goes 0-2 against the world's best. Is able to take down another world finalist here to stay alive and stay on.